Greetings hobbyists, this is addon, and in this video I wanted to spend a bit of time going through my main function use of machine tools. So I think it would be remiss of me not starting this video with the sad news that Machine Tools is no longer available for free on Gumroad. This was originally available on Gumroad and you could put in a price that you thought was fair, with an option of putting in $0, therefore making it free, and a lot of people did that, with some coming back and then buying the Deus Ex version, which has a few extra additions to it, and other people came back and then donated a bit of money as well, just because they tried it out and then really liked it. And obviously it is very sad that this now isn't available for free. I know a lot of people where this was their first add-on that they used outside of the ones included in Blender, and it's a pretty good introduction to what most add-ons do, and it gives you a chance to try out installing an add-on for free without you having any concerns, and it's from a really reputable source. Now before we go through all the tools that are included that I use, I just wanted to mention why this has happened, but feel free to skip past this if it doesn't interest you at all. So in essence, the main reason is that this is probably the tool that Machine has to spend the most time on every single time Blender is updated, and Blender is updated fairly regularly. It's one of the great things about it. And while that's fine for a paid for add-on that people keep purchasing, so it's paying for that work, one where people don't have to pay for it could be problematic. And unfortunately, with less than 1% of people choosing to donate when purchasing machine tools, it just seems that that's not very sustainable. And I think that's probably fair enough. So now there's two price points: Prime, which has the vast majority of the features for $5, and let's be clear, where I am, that's less than a pint. So I don't think that's an outrageous price, and then you've got $15 for the more expensive version. I will add to this that Machine did, if you'd donated some money, bump you up to the next level. So if you donated $3.50 or more, then you got Prime, and if you donated only $5 or more, you got the Deus Ex version. So I think that's pretty generous, all things considered. Now I'm pretty biased in this. I'd already bought the Deus Ex version, so this does nothing to me in terms of having an additional cost, so I'm not going to be particularly put out by this. And if you have used Machine Tools, I think you'll realise how worth it is for just $5. But what I thought I'd do today is go through the tools that I use in Machine Tools really rapidly. I've got many more detailed videos on the channel, and there's a link to that playlist in the description, where I haven't gone through all of them yet, but I've gone through a lot in a lot more detail. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Preferences, so you can see which of the Machine Tool add-ons I use. So here we've got the tools that I use here. Now, what I'll do is I'll just bring this up every so often so that we can talk through this and just go through what each of those tools mean. But I'm just going to bring this over to the side for now. So let's talk through these first ones. But before we do that, I'm actually going to scroll down here to the mode pie. Now the mode pie, when I press tab, is what comes up to change modes. Instead of using the normal tab and then 1, 2 and 3, it gives you these options, and obviously it looks really slow here. But what you really do is just tab and go to the left for vertex, tab and to the bottom for edge, tab and to the right for face, and it just makes things really, really quick to do, and then up to go into object mode. I really like this, mostly for the speed, but also it gives something really visual that I quite like to show what mode I'm going into. It's also useful for the YouTube channel just because people can see what I'm doing. But what importantly that does, if we go into vertex mode, is it frees the 1, 2 and 3 keys up, and then we'll also use the 4 key for these top 4 functions. So these each have a lot of different things that they do. I'm not going to go through all of them, there's videos on that. I'll just talk through the ones that I use the most. So the most common one I like is that 1 is very much closer to my finger than M. So for example, most of these merge options, or at least the ones I use, which is normally at center and at last, is available if we just press 1. So if I just press 1 here, it goes to last. If I select 2 and press shift and 1, it merges at center. And this is really, really handy for cleanup. It makes things so much faster to just be able to go around and do that really quickly. Smart Edge does things, well, shockingly for edges. So if I go into edge mode here, and I'm just going to bevel that, what we can do with Smart Edge is pick, let's say, 2 vertices, and if you press 2, it's going to join them. Again, just quicker. I don't need to look down at my keyboard to find where the J key is. You can also, if you've got no vertices clicked, click the 2 button, it starts the knife tool. So again, just something helpful to be able to do. The other thing it does is if I select multiple vertices, The one I select last, if I press 2, it will join all of those previous ones to that last point. Again, speeding up this join process by a massive amount. Oh, I should mention the other thing that Machin Tools does is gives you a quad sphere option. You can do this yourself using the rounded cube, but this just automatically has it there ready to go. Let's shade that flat. So the other thing we can do, if I go into edge mode and I select a load of edges, is if I press 2, it will automatically select everything internally to that, which is really handy. And I'm now in face mode, or I can press, let's say, grab a selection there, and then press 2 again, and it's just selected the outer edge. So Smart Edge, loads of tools. That's not even all of them, but I find that really handy. Right, with that in mind, let's 2 again, and I'm going to delete out these faces. So let's have a talk about one of the other tools. So we're going to go to Smart Face. Now what this does, if I go into vertex mode, is allow you to recreate faces. So for example, normally if we wanted to put some things together, if I went here, you'd hit the F tool and it would attempt to join things, but here we don't have a point somewhere here to try and join to. Well, Smart Face, which uses the 4 key, will automatically attempt to predict where those points should be, having a very good go at maintaining the curvature of the object that we're working on. It's also really nice, let's just come over here, because it automatically tries to predict where you're going to go next. So if I press 4, it knows that the next place I'm probably going to be is there, and then here, and then here. So really useful when you've got curved or unusual shapes that you're trying to form together, because something that's an odd shape like this, you can't just use the grid fill option. Now I would be able to though. So Control and F, and now I could go to grid fill, but it's really useful for setting that up to begin with. The other thing the 4 key does, let's just select some faces here, is if you don't have hard ops and you want to extract this from it, instead of having to go to Shift D, Escape, P, by selection, and now we've got this as a separate object, let's just delete that, go back into face mode. What we can do with this tool is just hit 4 and it's automatically made a new object. So we've got a separate object here and it's come into edit mode, so we can edit this or we can just start moving it around. So just a great time saving tool. Then we've got cleanup. Now this does loads of things in one go, but my probably most used instance of it is if I Control and B these and press C to clamp that bevel. What this does is cause a problem of overlapping vertices. It's a really common issue when booleaning objects. If you just hit the 3 key, don't even have anything selected, it's just gone through and deleted any vertices that are overlapping. It also does a load of other functions as well at the same time. So this is pretty much my go-to when I have an issue with an object not being manifold. I just come in, hit 3, and I'd say probably 80% of the time that solves most of the issues with it. Right, I'm going to miss out edge constraints just because it's part of the Deus Ex version. If you are interested in a video on that, I'll be happy to do one. Right, let's bring in a cube again and let's go into edge mode and Control and E and subdivide those a couple of times, and we'll talk about the extrude function. So this is actually called Punch It. It is sold separately as well, so you can get it, but what it does is add a more effective extrude manifold. That's really simplifying it, but if we just Alt and E and then I click Punch It, it will allow me to go down an amount, click, and it's going to then click again, and it's done extrude manifold. Now what's clever about this tool, let's just select some edges here, is if I G and then X that out like 0.0001, something like that. If I was to normally extrude manifold, so Alt E, extrude manifold and extrude down, you can see that it hasn't perfectly worked this out. We've got this face here that's going to be a problem. If I come to Punch It, and so this issue of there being not perfectly perpendicular faces happens a lot when you've done booleans and things like that. If we Alt E and then Punch It and go down, there, we've got this problem, but if I press W, it basically sorts it out. So really useful as a tool. Right, focus, let's just select a couple of these. So the focus tool is, I really like this. So normally if we want to select this and just view it by itself, we'd press the / key to isolate, and it does this annoying zooming to it thing, and then when I want to come out, it zooms out. I find it really tedious, whereas the focus key, if we do this and just press F, it gets rid of the other objects without doing the whole zooming in and out. What's really nice about this is I can select multiple things, press F, and you can see we've got focus level 1, and if I come here and press F again, we focus in another level, and we can focus out by then one more level, and then one more level again. So we just do that by hitting the F key each time without something being selected. Really nice. I vastly prefer this to the /. The only issue with this is that it won't work when you're in edit mode. Slight shame there. If that worked in edit mode, this would be godly. Right, next we're going on to the align function. Let's just bring in a cube here. I'm going to shift and D, and then let's rotate that on the Z. And then I'm just going to grab this one and let's scale that down, except for on the Y, so we can see what's going on. So the align function, really easy to use. Click, shift click on the second object, Alt and A, and it will automatically align those two objects by the origin together. So the first object is aligned to the second. You can actually do this with other things. So for example, you can align the floor, the cursor, the origin as well. And you can select to do it just in certain axes. So for example, if I want things at the same height, I can use that there, or can do everything. You can also turn the rotation on and off, or you can turn the location on and off. So a massive amount of functions there. Right, let's just delete that. We've got the group tool. That's a function of Deus Ex. I've got a video of that in the playlist for Machine Tools. It effectively allows you to do a pseudo rigging that I actually prefer for hard surface. Check that out if you want to. Then we've got toggle region. So toggle region is just that if I normally press the T key over here, it would bring out the T menu. I'm just going to minimize that. Normally you'd have to hit N to bring out the N menu. What this does is it basically just means that whatever side you're on, it does the tool for you each time by hitting just the T key. Again, just meaning you don't have to move your hand as far, and it also brings out your asset browser either there or at the top, which is really handy. So just a bit of a time saver again. Right, next one up, surface slide. Let's bring out that quad sphere again, and note that we normally have a problem that if I want to move a vertex around, we will almost always deform this face in a way that we don't want. Now what I can do is press GG, and that will go along this line, which is okay, but what if I want to move it at an angle, basically across this face? Now again, most of these things you can do in a really roundabout way in Vanilla Blender. You could duplicate this object and then do a snap to surface or something like that. But surface slide, if I press tab, you can see we have this surface slide option here. If I click that, now when I press G, it will slide across these surfaces perfectly, which means that I can go to anywhere here and it's going to keep that shape, or whatever shape we had before. And then if you just want to stop that, you just press tab and then come out of surface slide. So really nice function there, very quick and easy to use. The thread tool puts in a thread, shockingly. Let's just bring in a cylinder and let's go into edge mode and Control and R there. So we're going to leave it at that point. Going to go into face mode, select those faces, right click, Machine Tools, add thread, and we can add a thread. We can change all of our options, so how many threads do we want, change the diameter of it, and you'll notice that we controlled that by only going up to that area. It's really, really nice, just something you can very quickly use to make a threaded object. Then we come into the pie menus. Yeah, that's not it. And notice I don't even use all of it. There's many other things we could do. Actually, I do occasionally use mesh cut. So let's just bring in a cube and shift and D and bring in another cube. Select two of those, right click, Machine Tools, and now we have mesh cut. And what that will do is that it is now put a knife through those two and added those edges and verts in. So a useful tool there if you need it. Right, so back to the pie menus. So we've shown the mode pie. There's also the cursor and origin manipulation. Do note, I'm not going to go through the ones I don't really use a lot. I'm probably not the best person to talk through all of those because, again, I don't use them loads. I don't use materials a lot, for example. And bear in mind, I'm using about half of these tools. I bought the Deus Ex version not for the additional functions, though I've now realised they're great, but because I just wanted to give some money for the work that was done. So let's just bring in a cube again, and then let's move that over here somewhere. So say we want to move things around. For example, I want to move this origin. If we just press Shift and S, we get the cursor and origin pie, so I can now move the cursor to the origin, though it's already there. I can move the cursor to selected. let's put it back to the origin. I can change the origin for the object to the cursor, or I could put it to the bottom face, which is really helpful when sort of aligning things. This combined with the align pie is brilliant, because let's just bring in another cube. So for example there, I can go into face mode, object origin to the face, and then Alt A, and they're on top of each other, or I could just do that in one axis. Now we do have snap base in Blender 4, but I still find this really useful for huge amounts of reasons. Probably the main one being that I can select an edge there, put the object origin on that edge, and now I'm going to rotate around that edge. So it just speeds up life, as most of these tools are designed to do. And then finally we have the alignment pie. Let's just bring in a cube, and then let's go into vertex mode and then just move something there. So the align pie is similar to the align tool. The align tool is there to move objects around. This is there to align vertices. So for example, if I select that vertex there and that vertex there, if I just press Alt and A, you bring up this align pie, and I can just drag down and say downwards is where I want to go, and it will align it there, or I can do it much more quickly there, or however you want it to be. So let's go there and go that way. So it's really useful just to make sure that you've got things perfectly aligned. Now, don't get me wrong, if I put an edge loop here and then G and Z that up, and then G and then Z that up, you can align things together by, let's say, S and then Z and then 0 to do that. But what that will do is that, if you notice, averages out the space between them, so it centers it, whereas this will bring them down exactly to that point, or you can do multiples, so it will get them perfectly flat. So that's really nice. Oh, I just realized there's one I haven't gone through. Where's that? Do I not have that assigned at this point? Oh no, the mirror. Don't know how I missed that out, my apologies. So let's Shift and D there. So this just effectively does the mirror like you would as a modifier, but it's vastly faster. Let's Control and R and then G and then X that out. Oh, we did it on that side as well. Oh well, it doesn't make a difference. Anyway, if we just come into object mode and then Shift Alt and X, we get this mirror pie. I drag to the side I want it to be, and it's mirrored it over to the other side. Just adding in that mirror modifier. So you can also, let's take this object, do it around a second object, so Shift Alt X and then do it there, and it's mirrored it across this object. So a really quick way of just mirroring different objects. So really effective there, instead of having to go through the whole pain of going through and adding modifiers in and then selecting the object you want to mirror around and then so on and so forth. It's just really tedious. So a much better way of doing it. Oh, damn it, I nearly forgot the best one of all of them. I'm just going to set things up here. So I'm just making some random shape and I'm adding some extra details to it. And then I've made some multiple copies of it. I don't know what this would be. Parts of a robot, something like that. Whatever. So this is the align relative function, and this is just absolutely awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our details. Do note we've got some objects with different alignments, and we've got this object where we've got a different size to it. It's actually smaller than the other ones. So what we're going to do is select our details, click, shift click, and then shift click on the object we want to align to last. So we want everything to be affected by what is, well, this elongated part. Right click, Machine Tools, Align Relative, and then we're just going to click on the objects that are like the first one. So there, and then I'm just going to shift click and there, and you can see we get these mock versions of this. Just to show us where everything's going to go, we can also scroll up to have an instance instead of a duplicate. And if it's an instance, let's just hit space. You can see how everything is aligned perfectly. We've got exactly the same positioning, and this one is even shrunk to be the correct scale. And because we did the instancing option, what I could do here is come into, let's say, this face I, and then E that up a little bit, and then we've got a problem here, but oh, that's because of the issue that I mentioned before. So that's 3 to fix that. Select I and then E that up, and then we can see that's done it on all of the other ones because they are instances. So the Align Relative tool is amazing, absolutely fantastic. Again, I've got a slightly more detailed video going into some of the possibilities of what you could use this for. There's a link to that playlist in the description. So there we go. That is all of the tools that I generally use from Machine Tools. Just a quick overview of each of them. As I said, I've not really talked about many of them in detail, and actually some of them, especially the Smart Vert, Smart Edge, the Smart Face, have way more functions than this. I just don't use them all that regularly, so just haven't spoken about them. But I do have more detailed videos on that playlist that's in the description. So if you honestly don't think all of those tools and the time it's going to save you is worth $5, that is totally your choice. But if you do, and you want to save yourself a load of time, I personally think Machin Tools is probably the most used add-on that I have of all of them, even before Hard Ops and Box Cutter. Now there is a link in the description of where you can purchase Machin Tools in Blender Market. It is an affiliate link, which means that as opposed to when I used to have it up and it was free, this won't cost you any extra, but by purchasing it you will not only help support the fantastic work the Machin's doing, and at the moment he's working on what looks to be an absolutely amazing new add-on called Hypercursor. Honestly, it looks absolutely outstanding. So you're helping funding that work, but you'll also help fund this channel as well. If you found this video useful, please do hit that like button. If you do think this isn't worth the cost, then feel free to say so in the comments section. I'm well aware that you can do all of the things that I've just shown through various means using the native tools in Blender. They just take 2, 3 or 4 times the time, and if you'd rather save yourself $5 than save yourself hours of time, more power to you, and I commend your patience. Have a great day, guys.